is Anna.
And I'm Peyton.
And today, what are we doing today?
Today, we are back with the next episode of our debut versus recent analysis series, and we will be looking at EXO and how they have changed and grown in the last 8 years.
Wow. EXO debuted in 2012 as originally a 12-member group split up into 2 units, EXO-K and EXO-M. Over the years, they've reformed, and currently they have 9 members, although a few are on hiatus or doing military service right now.
Like always, if you are just joining us on this episode of the series and you're interested in how we chose the groups and what the criteria were that they had to meet and how we'll be doing our commentary, there is a quick description down in the box below. But if you want the full, long-winded explanation, that is in episode 1 of our series. So for today's episode, we will be looking at their debut music video, Mama. And for that, we'll have to watch the EXO-K version. And then we'll be looking at their most recent music video, Obsession. We actually thought a lot about how we should do this when we decided to pick EXO out of the list of groups that we created. We thought about all of the different combinations of music videos that happened over the years based on lineup changes and when military enlistments happened and when hiatuses happened, but we in the end just decided to go with the original debut and most recent because it will give the biggest change, and as we are both pretty big EXO fans, we can talk about what has happened in between those, even if we're not watching them today.
So to start off, Peyton, would you like to explain how big of an EXO-L you are?
If you have ever watched this channel, you probably know that I love EXO. I adore them. They are my number 1 group, and they have been my number 1 group since 2014, when I was first introduced to them in the fall of 2014. My ultimate bias is Park Chan-yeol. My ultimate bias wrecker is Yeon Baek-hyun. I really just adore them. I support all 9 of them in everything they do, group work and solo work. So, Anna, what about you?
I also really love EXO. They are not my current top number 1 group like Peyton, but they are still in my top groups that I follow. I feel so old whenever I say this. I'm yeah, I've been following them since their pre-debut. I was watching the teasers when they came out for their debut in 2011. Yeah, the first K-pop album that I ever bought on my own was the EXO Nuttewa Minyo album.
The first K-pop concert I ever bought tickets to was EXO's concert.
Yeah. So you could say that we kind of like them or whatever.
These music videos are long, so
yeah, let's go.
When the skies and the grounds were one the legends, through their 12 forces.
The iconic anime intro.
This is literally 2 minutes long.
An eye of red force created the evil.
It's looking back on it though, I'm getting that secondhand embarrassment, you know? But at the same time, it's so important to the world building, because they've stuck with this whole superhero alien or superpower alien thing.
Yeah.
Hence, time is overturned and space turns askew. The 12 forces divide into 2.
I also haven't watched this in a really long time, because when I've rewatched the Mama music video,
you just skip.
I usually just fast forward through it.
Do you know what's crazy about this?
Huh?
The highest quality for this music video is 720p.
Oh my gosh, because it's so old.
Yeah. I mean, the quality of the music video is just gonna get worse the further we go on in the series.
In 2 worlds that seem alike, the legends will greet each other. The day the red force is purified and the 12...
But also, this is reminding me of what I said in our episode last week, where older K-pop videos tended to have these really long intros before you actually got to the song.
Yeah. Oof. This whole freaking Gregorian chant thing.
The drama.
I love it. Oh. Back when SM had the in-music video ads that you can't get rid of. Peyton, are you okay? I feel like I'm gonna be quite silent during this. I don't know why.
Oh, the bling.
That
The
hair.
styling, yeah, this styling is so like 2012.
Oh, they were all so skinny back then.
Oh. Wow. I'm like, sorry, I'm gonna be so quiet.
I know, wait, I've just been silent this whole time and it's so weird. That hair.
Oh, I love you, but like that hair.
They're showing off their powers.
It is
Oh my
interesting
God.
to me, like how well the powers all match the members too. Like they really put some thought into that.
Yeah. I mean, like... No, not a relevant comment. Sorry.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, wait, I just remembered what's
this
coming
part.
next.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, it's coming up. Oh. Yep.
Here we go, it's coming.
The intense guitar.
Wow.
My body just reacted because not intentionally. I was just like
I mean, like, if you're going for dramatic
that was.
and for memorable,
Yes. It's very impactful.
but then so like everyone's in it now.
Gosh, I feel like based on our reaction to that, if you didn't know we were XOLs, that would not.
I think like part of it is having seen what they've done since this, we look back at it and we're like imagine Kai and Love Shot with that painted.
Their other sides. Oh, I know, I miss him.
That's such a cool shot.
Cause it's the two.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
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 The very first EXO logo. Will I actually say things during this one? Who knows? I'm so intimidated. I love it. 제발 이제 그만.
Wow.
We just found. Whoa.
Wow. I love them all so much. Wow.
I feel like I'm acting like I'm not filming a video. I'm just like, I'm watching
This is
this
just
in my
me
room.
watching EXO. Yes, I agree. Back to your comment. This is just like what I do regularly. I got distracted.
I know you did.
I do think it's interesting though because unlike other videos we've done of this series, this is much less whiplash between the two videos, you know?
Both of them are like very dramatic, like drama, intense.
Yeah. Like we didn't go from like very happy to very like dark, you know? Oh.
So Peyton, EXO or XXO?
I plead the fifth.
Oh, the vocals.
Oh. I do remember when this came out though, and everyone was like, all of the other EXO XXO members are fighting, and then Chen and like X-Chen are just sitting at a table like singing.
We're like, so how was your day?
Yeah, so polite.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh.
Still with the superpowers
But
though.
lean into that though. Sorry. What?
You're good.
Whoa.
This ending.
Wow.
Wow.
대박. Amazing.
Amazing.
Wow.
Let's just go. There's
Oh,
so much
God.
to say.
I know, okay. I genuinely do not feel qualified to comment on EXO's vocal growth, but I will try. To start off, one thing that Peyton and I always say to each other that's to be noted about SM is that their artists, they have them still take lessons even after they debut. They're still like learning new techniques and learning different methods. Not only are they growing through stage experience and building their endurance that way, but also like they're still receiving lessons, so it sort of increases that level of growth even more. One example of that is like Baekhyun's solos are like a very different singing style than he uses for EXO as a group, typically. And he has even said in interviews like, yeah, I take lessons and learned how to sing in this different singing style. But that being said, one thing very special about EXO is that they have a beautiful ensemble of voices. And it's interesting also because like their ratio of vocalists in the group is higher than a typical K-pop group, just because like when they initially started out and had those two subunits, each unit had the makeup of a typical K-pop group. So when those two groups came together, that doubles their vocal power. And then it just so happened that like some of the member changes that happened, that decreased the amount of rappers, not the amount of vocalists. What I'm saying about EXO as an ensemble, they know how to use them in a group setting. And I think that that's something that they've definitely learned how to do. There's a difference between a solo voice and an ensemble voice. Not a lot of K-pop groups have that, just because typically they aren't trained for like more choral style ensemble singing. Usually if there are moments in K-pop songs when they sing all together, they want those distinct voices to be heard. But EXO has a lot of moments in their songs where it's not really like the distinct voices being heard, it's like they blend together very well, sort of like an a cappella or like choral arrangement. Perfect example of what I'm talking about is the a cappella moment in Tempo, which also is literally like one of my top 5 favorite moments in K-pop ever. And I have been a K-pop fan for a very long time. I think that's something that makes them very unique because they do have very strong solo singers, but the ability to switch between solo versus group ensemble singing. And I need to stop here because I've said too much. I could go on forever. Peyton.
I could also honestly talk forever about their dancing and how it has changed, but we don't have that kind of time. I should probably also preface my comments though with the fact that because EXO is my favorite group, I am a lot more critical of them than I am of just like a group that I normally watch, because I hold them to a even higher standard than I hold most of my faves to. But yeah, so just starting off, obviously like one of the biggest things is that the gap between the dancers and the non-dancers isn't as visible anymore. It was really visible when they debuted, but because they've had this time to grow, like the gap has really shortened, even though the main dancers have also gotten so much better. Wow. But one thing that I noticed specifically for all of the members in their movement style from Mama to Obsession is that their moves used to be very disconnected. Even movements that were supposed to be more connected and smoother, it felt very much like I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this, and like choreography that had just been given to them, not that they had really taken and made their own. And that's one thing that EXO does really well now, is they're given the choreography, but then they take it and they make it their own as a group, and they also add their own individual flair to it. Like you can really see that change. And then also, like I've said this about a lot of groups, that when you train together and dance together for a long time, you start to get more cohesive. But EXO specifically, they've gotten a lot more cohesive, which I think was actually more difficult for them than for a normal K-pop group that stayed with the same members over time, because they have had so many different member changes, lineup changes. And then also, like Anna was saying, how they were initially made up as like two individual groups, like with all of the elements of a K-pop group. That's true for the dancing too. They had main dancers and lead dancers picked for each of the subunits. The main dancers for the subunits had very different styles. And generally speaking, K-pop groups start to reflect the style of the main dancer. As they're growing, they all kind of start to be cohesive around that sort of style, generally speaking, just because they're the ones that are leading practice and like helping the members who aren't as strong in dancing out. And so when they came together, they had to readjust that a little bit because they had been growing around different styles, even though they were being given the exact same choreography. Like if you watch the early stuff where they're split EXO-K, EXO-M, the same choreography looks different, but now they look like one very cohesive unit, and it incorporates all of the styles of the main dancers. So it's just very interesting to me. But yeah, I'm also gonna stop because I also just talked for a really long time. Performance?
Yes.
Our performance comments are kind of two-part, but they're super interconnected, so we'll just split up talking about it, starting with how versatile they have become during their performances. And that's just because they've had to reorganize and relearn the dances so many different times for a number of reasons. The members leaving, injury, hiatus, military enlistment. And even when they first started as a group, they would learn the choreography for the 6-member version and the 12-member version. So right from the very beginning, they were learning multiple versions of the song. They've become very versatile in what they can cover. They kind of seamlessly can cover parts that you generally wouldn't think like, oh, the main dancer sub-vocalist will be covering the main vocalist parts for tour, like they did during their last tour when Kai was covering Dio's parts. Like it's just something that they do and has become very natural to them, but it's not something that you see a lot in other groups because it's just not something that happens as often as it has happened to EXO.
It's something, it's sort of just like, because it's happened so much to EXO, they've kind of perfected it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for the typical K-pop group, it's something like unexpected that happens and like doesn't happen very frequently. But like sort of tied into that is also how their stage presence has grown, because looking back at the Mama live stage today compared to Obsession live stage, we were like, wow, their stage presence has really grown, because it is a good comparison for that. Like both only have 6 members on stage, but like the amount of energy that you feel from Mama versus Obsession is so different. A lot of it is just like they're more comfortable on stage now, and it's like there were members that like naturally just had a lot of stage presence to begin with, because there is something to be said of like you just have natural stage presence, but there's also a certain level that can be taught and learned, and they really have done that. But tied into our thing about them like being versatile with like member changes, even if you look back at like performances when there are 9 members, the stage doesn't feel overwhelmingly full, and then like 6 members Obsession, it doesn't feel empty compared to like 9 members versus 6 members. So we've both noticed that they sort of know how to adjust that energy level and stage manner, I guess, based on how many other people there are on stage, probably as a result of what we were just saying earlier, the first point.
I think that's all about performance though. Like, I mean, obviously we're saying that's all, but like those are the big points we wanted to make about performance.
Exactly. So then that will take us into the last category, concept/style, and image is also tied into that, but it's just not on the label.
Well, I mean, there's one thing to be said for consistency, because, you know, they started out with those alien superpowers and they've really stuck with it, man.
The tree of life.
Although it is interesting because I feel like nowadays it's a lot more common for groups to have these storylines in their music videos that are all connected. Whereas EXO, it's not in every single music video. But, like, it still is their overarching concept. They're still asked to do it on variety shows.
But now it's like a joke. But one thing I was going to say for, like, their superpowers concept thing, though. Like, yes, it is a concept, but it also feels part of, like, the overarching EXO brand. Because nowadays, when groups have their, like, storylines and everything, every single music video is connected and it's actually, like, telling a whole story. Or they'll have, like, a trilogy thing that's telling a storyline, and then the next trilogy, and then the next trilogy, or something like that. But EXO's was like, initially it felt like it was going to be like, okay, they're doing a whole storyline, but no, it's more like this is their brand and like it's something that they can reference and it's like something used for marketing, I guess.
I mean, they've gotten really good at the whole like EXO brand.
Yeah, like you were even saying before too with the EXO logo, how it changes for each comeback.
But speaking of branding, so another thing about EXO is that, like, yes, they have created this whole overarching EXO brand that like people familiar with K-pop are familiar with, but individually they have also created their individual brands that, like, Anna and I were talking about this before, and like the South Korean public is familiar with the individual members of EXO. A really good example of that is Kyungsu Dio. He's so well known by the South Korean public as Do Kyungsu, like the actor, that sometimes, like, especially people who aren't as interested in K-pop don't know that he's part of EXO.
Literally, I have so many friends that I know, and like their parents are like, oh, I really like this one pair, like Do Kyungsu, I watched him in this movie, and then we tell them like, oh, he's in this K-pop group EXO, and they're like, oh, I've heard of EXO. Wait, he's a member of EXO? Wow.
Yeah. So their individual brands are just as strong as the EXO brand, which just strengthens the EXO brand.
Which is very interesting because I feel like it's usually like one or the other.
It's also interesting because usually if the South Korean public is familiar with an idol, or like a member of an idol group, it tends to be like one or two members, not like every member.
And I think one thing to be said for that is because it feels like each member has found their like niche and like really excel in that niche. And in my mind I'm like, well, that makes sense because they had to beat out so many people to get into this group.
Yeah, they had to differentiate themselves to even make it into the group.
And I think that like carries into what you were saying to me before too.
It was like, we usually talk about how especially groups that debuted earlier tend to have their like specific role that they're given, like the mysterious good-looking one that doesn't talk, or like the funny member, that sort of thing. But we were talking about how their images that people know them as haven't really changed. They've just strengthened.
And I think part of it might be because like they did try to give them roles in the beginning, but also in the beginning EXO like did not go on variety shows or anything until like 2014, maybe 2013, but even in 2013 it was like 2. So like there wasn't really an opportunity for those given roles to be shown. So by the time that they're like 2 years in, and that's typically when a K-pop group starts showing their actual personalities a little bit more, it's like, well, no one knew those given ones to begin with. So, but anyways, we've decided to stop here just because we've been filming for like over 40 minutes now, and we could go on for longer. I don't even know how much of this is going to make it into the actual video. I don't know, how do you want to end the video? You're the bigger Eddie, so...
I don't know, we don't do TLDRs for these videos, but it's just really interesting to talk about their growth because in some ways I feel like they've changed a lot, and in other ways they seem to have stayed pretty consistent. So these are just some of the larger points that we condensed for this video, but we would love to hear...
Did we condense them?
Condensed? But we would love to hear if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, if you think there are other things that we missed, or you have your own opinions.
But anyways, if you enjoyed this video and also love EXO, feel free to comment down below your thoughts and opinions, leave a like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell,
Ding ding ding!
and bye!
Bye!